Welcome, and thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. In this show, we cover a broad range of topics that cater to CRE newcomers and industry leaders alike. I'm your host, Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing here at Crexi, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Shannon Bona, co-founder and managing partner of CrownPoint Partners, which is a newer company that we're very excited to get into talking about today. Before we dive in, a little bit about our guest. Shannon Bona is the co-founder and managing partner of CrownPoint Partners and serves as broker of record for Florida and Connecticut. She is a nationwide investment sales advisor for commercial properties, specializing in net lease assets ranging from new construction to 1031 exchanges. She has been involved in nearly $1 billion worth in commercial real estate transactions to date. With over a decade of experience in the commercial real estate industry, Shannon best serves her clients by combining her background in institutional real estate lending and investment sales experience. She started her career at PNC Bank in real estate lending, providing high-level debt solutions to all product types for private and institutional clients. She then transitioned to investment sales at Marcus & Millichap, where she thrived as a team leader and received the coveted Rookie of the Year award. Most recently, Shannon was promoted in spring 2024 to first vice president of her previous firm, where she led the net lease retail team. Shannon is a graduate of Villanova University, located in Villanova, Pennsylvania, holding degrees in both finance and real estate. Since 2016, she has been an active council member for Villanova's Daniel M. DeLella. Is that correct? DeLella?
Daniel M. DeLella, yes.
Wow, that rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
Nice.
I know, it sounds nice.
Daniel M. DeLella's Center for Real Estate. The Nova Next Council provides strategic guidance on the center's mission and activities, its impact on curricula at the Villanova School of Business, and the expansion of professional development opportunities available to VSB students, specifically in the field of real estate. Shannon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Crexi has always been a big part of our business, so it's such an honor to be here to talk with you about CrownPoint Partners, my career, and everything real estate.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
We've been in talks with you since, leading up to the launch of your new firm. So very excited to see that moment happen and see where you guys are going from there, which I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about in our conversation today. So I know I just read through your bio and covered a bit of your background, but to start us off in your own words, I'd love to hear more about your experience of your career path and lessons that you've learned along the way. Yeah. So to kick us off, where are you from?
Sure.
What got you started in commercial real estate?
So I have a pretty funny story about that. So I am from Connecticut originally. My dad was a police chief in our town, and my mom had her own residential brokerage firm.
Okay.
So I went to Villanova in my dad's footsteps. I actually really wanted to come to California, but he went to Villanova, and he was dealing with some health issues. Also, Villanova was a top 10 business school, which kind of helped me sway the decision. So in honor of him, and then also, Villanova just being a good school, I chose Villanova. So gave up my California dreams. So
you're here now.
Here now. And our company's headquartered there. It's West Palm and Newport Beach. So I ended up getting my dream. So anywho, so I go to Villanova. I wanted to actually do forensic accounting. So I did an internship with the DA's office, which was cool. We actually got to do real life investigations. I was part of a murder trial, got to sit through that. Very cool. I got to do actual investigating, trying to put pieces of accounting together to, help indict criminals. Very fun.
Very cool.
But then I was like, okay, I got to do a traditional, finance internship too. And it was super competitive. It happened to be in one of the previous summers, my mom was like, you know what, go get your real estate license. It's a great backup. She's like, I did it. Just get it. And it was viewed as a backup. So it turns out I'm now trying to get an internship at PNC. I see how many brilliant students are there. 4.0 GPAs, all this insanity. I'm like, how do I make myself stand apart? So I saw at PNC they had a real estate lending internship. And I'm like, well, I got that accolade of the real estate license. Let me try to gear this interview towards real estate. And it worked out. And I ended up getting an internship there. This was also parlayed with Villanova actually offering a real estate major. So I started to take a few courses. And at that point, my dreams of being Donnie Brasco were gone. It was now about let's be Donald Bren, let's be Donald Trump. We're in real estate. Let's go.
Different Donalds.
So, totally. So many Donalds out there. Too many. But yeah, so that's kind of how that shifted. And Villanova was just a really pivotal part because they allowed us to have real life instructors from the real estate world. Like we had one professor, Tony Zaccardi, worked for Brandywine Realty Trust. He came in, gave us the real life, what's happening in the development world. Let's do underwriting for that. And then coupled with a PNC internship, real world underwriting, getting to go to job sites. It was pretty incredible. So at that point, real estate was my life. I ended up getting a job at PNC starting out about a year, 2 years. And then I was told I would have to go to a different market aside from Philadelphia, which is where I wanted to be. So at that point, I went back to my Villanova network and was like, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you either choose a city you want to be in or you choose that specific aspect of real estate. So I was like, you know what? I love Philly. I need to go back. So I started interviewing, and then that's where I met the regional manager of Marcus and Millichap, fell in love with the idea of the entrepreneurial aspect. My parents hated me. They're like, how are you giving up this nice salary to go out on your own with zero? But I was like, this is something, I need to do. I want to do it. And, that really started out my career in brokerage.
Amazing.
So long-winded story, but I think it's really cool how it ended up.
Yeah, it kicked you off. So you're at this nice cushy job. You're like, I don't want to leave my hometown. I love this place. I'm going to get into brokerage, totally new career path, basically very much own your own success, and it can be difficult in the first couple of years of brokerage too. So during that transition, or even before, earlier on the other side of like more the finance part, did you have any mentors or people who you turned to for advice that you think maybe gave you the courage or the right words you needed to hear to make the transition to a totally new aspect of commercial real estate?
Yeah, I would say my two main mentors are one, Sherry Reams. She was at PNC. She was a high up executive who took me in as an intern, and she really gave me that real world experience. We did at one point underwriting for a top tier hotel under construction in Manhattan. And me and Sherry and the underwriter, we went around, toured boutique hotels, met with the developer. It was really cool. It was really hands-on. And she was really supportive of whatever I wanted to do in my career. And as a top leading female executive with every accolade imaginable, she was a CFA, CPA, attorney, all of those. Yeah. It was really inspiring that, no matter where you want to go in your career, you can do it. But then when I transitioned, I was with Mark Taylor at Marcus & Millichap, Philadelphia. And he, right with Sherry, was just a man of many accolades. No one ever said anything bad about him. And, the brokerage world, you hear a lot of, very egotistical, very diverse personalities. But everyone always knew Mark was a stand-up guy. He had many great clients, a huge, career. And I always aligned myself with these types of mentors. So I knew, okay, they have a great career. I can too. And they really put me under their wings. They taught me the ropes. And I think it gave a really big corporate perspective, because a lot of people are right out of college to go into brokerage. It's pretty rogue. But with Sherry, with Mark as my mentors, I really maintained that professionalism, that corporate, treating of clients. Like this is, we're not just selling real estate. This is a big venture, and we're going to do it appropriately.
Yeah, you got to take care of the people, and it's high stakes financial decisions. So being able to put them at ease with that professionalism, I'm sure, has been a huge selling point for you. And also, like, I love what you said about seeing, this woman, especially with all these different accolades, all these different things she's accomplished. You never saw really any example that said you couldn't do that.
Right. Yeah. I never knew any different. Sometimes people, and we'll get to this in another question, but, some people say, oh, you're one of the only females out there. It's hard as a female. I never thought of that because it was just innate to me, like just being in the spotlight, seeing all these leaders who were female executives, that I was used to that. So It wasn't a challenge. So.
Love it. I love it. Confidence, right? So I'm curious, with that kind of corporate scope too, and working more on the financing side. Did you learn any like tricks of the trade maybe, or just insights into seeing like that side of the business that you feel really serve you in your brokerage work today? I'm sure especially getting to see like all these different product types gave you a more holistic perspective of the market. But I'm curious if you have any early lessons learned from that world that you still apply to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that's really paramount is knowing how to underwrite, knowing how to read a lease, interpreting that. There's a lot of firms out there who have an analyst or underwriter. You get the business, you pass it off to them. I don't like to operate that way. Like, I want to know the assets I'm working with. I want to know the ins and outs of them because that allows me to better sell for my client. So I think the underwriting fundamentals, whether that was at Villanova or at PNC, really helped me deliver the best results for my client because I understand the ins and outs of the real estate. I'm the one who read your lease. I'm the one who's doing the P&L. Yeah. So I really think it helps. So I really appreciate that experience, and I definitely recommend it to anyone, coming into the business.
Yeah.
Making sure you understand the finance behind it.
Yeah, you got to really understand what it is you're working with.
Right.
There's, I think, a good number of people out there that sometimes are like, oh, yeah, as long as I have like the sales aspect down, the customer service aspect down. No, like you really got to know the math. You got to know the data. You got to know what you're talking about.
Totally. And I'm one of those people who, if I don't know what I'm talking about, you'll know it. And I'll sound real bad. So for me, knowing something thoroughly really helps me tell the story. And I think that's a good part.
I love it. So you have that, and that really served you in your career today. Were there any skills that you had to learn or start practicing a lot more so once you transition to the brokerage side?
Yeah, so I think at a large bank like a PNC, a lot of the business is already there. You're at the top bank. PNC's known for real estate. It all came to you. With brokerage, you have to go back to fundamentals, and you have to do the same mundane tasks daily to get a result. So prospecting, cold calling buyers on your listings, following up. So I kind of equate it back to when I was learning the piano when I was young and playing sports.
Oh, I play piano too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good thing for a kid to learn. I started when I was 4. I played classical, competed, and it was like, yeah, we got to talk about this after, 100%. And I had a Russian piano teacher, very rigorous, and it was like, I'm doing the same thing every night, practicing for an hour or two. Get used to it. It's okay. Like, it's not going to be exciting, but to learn it, you got to do it. Same with sports, like hitting a ball, like playing softball, something like that. So I think it got me down to the basics going into brokerage of this is my day in and day out. And at no level where you are in brokerage, whether you first started or you own a company, you're still doing it. Yep. So it's just getting used to that, and that's how you achieve excellence.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym every day. You got to practice.
Totally.
Otherwise, you'll lose the muscle, literally, in that case.
I love that example.
So at Marcus & Millichap, you earned Rookie of the Year.
Thank you. Yeah.
Pretty soon off the bat. How do you think in those early days in your career, what do you think about you made you stand out to the people giving that award? And again, you touched on like the practicing, the doing the reps, the cold calling. What do you think made you stand out among your peers that were also like learning those skills at the same time?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it attributed to my mentors. A lot of it attributed to making the calls, getting on the phone, being told no, but still doing it and persevering. And I did a lot of shopping centers back then, and I had quite a few challenging deals. And I learned early on, you can't make anyone buy something they don't want. But once you have two people wanting the same thing, so a buyer and seller, there are going to be obstacles and you need to overcome them. So I had a few challenging shopping centers where I got the buyer and the seller together. We worked out problems, we overcame, and then, we ended up getting the deals done. So that really helped. My first year income was just being a problem solver. I found the buyer, I found the seller. Now let's make everyone happy. And that's the cool thing about real estate. It's a zero-sum game. So it's not like in the legal world where there's a victor or, there's, a loser. In real estate, both the buyer and the seller should be happy at the end of the transaction.
Absolutely. Those are the best deals when you can make everybody,
yes,
even if there's compromise involved, you can still
there's
make sure
always compromise.
People are happy with what they walk away with.
Totally.
So throughout your brokerage career, you've touched nearly $1 billion in closed transactions, which is awesome.
Thanks.
Do you have any standout favorite deals? And what about that deal is so memorable to you?
Yeah, so I have a repeat client. They're a family fund, and I've sold a lot of their deals for them. And I also help them into 1031 exchanges. So at this one given time, I had a few of their properties listed, and unfortunately, their tenant went dark. They didn't even know it. One of the buyers went to the site, and they just closed their doors. The tenant didn't even tell them yet.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a really bad situation to be in.
Yeah.
But that's really where the deal telling comes in, and also being attuned to your client. So at that point, I, sat down with them virtually, and I was like, okay, guys, like, what is our focus? And their focus was, okay, we don't want a dark tenant in our portfolio. Let's hold off on everything else, and let's just hyper focus on this. So, other brokers might be upset. They're getting listings taken away. I was like, no, I agree. I'm aligned with what your strategy is. Let's double down and do this. So we ended up really focusing on this listing. It was a dark Bojangles, happened to be in a phenomenal market of Tennessee, Columbia. And we really just canvassed. We found multiple developers and local buyers who wanted it. And we ended up trading this at a 5.85 cap rate for a dark site.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah, in Tennessee.
So it just showed, one, good real estate prevails. To finding the right buyer for your client is huge. And it was a local developer and owner who really believed in the area, had a ton of ideas for it, would handle the tenant because they still had 10 years left, outside of the transaction. Because my client didn't want to wait for a developer contingency. So we were able to make everyone happy. And then after that, we got them into a 1031 property and closed 10 days after the close of that.
Amazing.
So we turned a really sour situation into something I believe was really positive.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to connect to your clients and know what their goals are, and then help them achieve that.
Amazing.
So,
I love hearing stories like that,
Thank you.
especially the fast turnaround. It's just like when a deal's meant to be, I feel like the speed comes naturally to it, which always feels good. So your alma mater has been a really big part of your journey so far, and you go back, you serve on this council that helps up and coming professionals. So how do you think being in touch with the next generations of commercial real estate participants has shaped your understanding of the industry and also influenced your network as you continue to work in the space?
Yeah, so I'm very attuned with appreciating your life experiences. So whether it was good, bad, ugly, whatever, those experiences shaped you. So I like to look back at my time at Villanova. I like to look back at some of the career paths I took, and all of that is why I'm here. So I really want to give back to the students. And I know when I ever had a career conundrum, I could call my professors, Jess Taylor, Sean Houghton, be like, guys, what do I do? And they would help me walk through various scenarios, put me in touch with the right people. So whether I was at Marcus and Millichap, I would always invite Villanova into our office, get them talking to everyone. We would pick up interns from them, really just mentor. And there were times where I would talk to students and maybe brokerage wasn't the right path, but I was open with them. I want to be as honest as possible. I remember one student, she was so talented and she got an offer at Wells Fargo and she was thinking about brokerage. I was like, just try Wells Fargo out. It's going to be a nice salary. I had a great experience at PNC learning how to underwrite and all the ins and outs of debt. Do that. So sometimes you have to be honest, even if it isn't them joining your team or them joining your firm. So it's really cool to give back in that sense. And the Villanova family is wonderful. There was a time I came to California and, one of, he was a gentleman a few years older than me. Him and his wife took me out, had me come down to Hermosa. He does debt now. So it's really cool how we can interact and try to, one, make deals happen, but also be there for each other in the industry.
I love that. Villanova strong.
Yes, go Cats.
I love it. I love it. So, shifting gears a little bit, obviously, we got to talk about your brand new company.
Oh, yes, please.
So there's a lot that goes into starting a new business. A broker, by their nature, are very entrepreneurial, right? But, starting your own firm is kind of a step beyond that. You're not hanging your hat on somebody else's office. You have your office. That's your name on the lease. So, first of all, congratulations
Thank you. I
at
appreciate
launching
that.
CrownPoint. It's very exciting.
Yes.
I'd love to know why now.
Yeah.
What was the moment that catalyzed the we should do this for you, and why did you take the leap with your partners?
Yeah, sure. So why now? We're in brokerage because we want that entrepreneurial lifestyle to begin with. It's all about creating our own destiny. And, I finally met two partners who I don't have to ever question. They're working just as hard as me or harder. I've never met as hardworking individuals as Don and Julius. So that enmeshment was, very easy to jump on board with to start a new firm. And then secondly, a lot of brokerages are generalists. They do everything. We all carve niches in the industry between Sale-Leasebacks and M&A advisory, along with net lease. And that's kind of why we wanted to really be specialists for our clients, and then also be extremely client-centric. We're in it for the long haul. All our lives revolve around real estate. Don and Julius are franchisees. They invest. I invest. We're brokers. Like, almost our lives are 24/7 real estate. So why not own your own company if you're that dedicated to a trade? And we love what we do. We love our clients. We have loyal clients. It was just an easy decision for us, I think.
Yeah, I love to hear that it arose out of that passion.
Yeah.
There's dozens of different reasons someone could think of to start a company, but it seems like it was inevitable for your team too. This is just such an obvious next step. Let's go. So I was going to ask, what does CrownPoint do? But you kind of summarized it pretty well. But just for the sound bite, tell us about CrownPoint.
So we really pride ourselves in partnering with our clients. That's why partners is in the name. It's not about Julius, Don, and myself. It's about us and our partners who are clients.
Love that.
Thank you. We want to treat every investment, whether we're selling something or we're helping someone buy something, like it's our own. We're in it for the long haul, and it's relationships. It's not the transactions. If there's a deal we don't think our client should pursue, or they have to make a hard decision about that, we're advocating for that, because that's how you build loyalty. That's how you build trust. And that's ultimately how you get your clients happy for their long-term investment strategy. So that's really, I think, what we're about. And of course, we focus on sale-leasebacks and net lease advisory.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got the niche, but you also got the very client service oriented.
Yes.
So I'm curious, from more the operational standpoint, it's a different ballgame to be more of a boutique firm versus one of the larger institutional firms. What, maybe from a culture or lifestyle or even just how you can serve your clients perspective, or rather, I guess, how are you building CrownPoint to be the firm that you want to be working at and that people you bring onto your team want to be working at? How do you try to differentiate yourself from a employer standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back to when I talked about my background in institutional banking. We want to be absolutely elite, our marketing top notch. We want to have very corporate professional feel. So whether it's an institutional client, we deal with a lot of REITs. Whether it is a larger operator, we deal with some very large companies on the sale-leaseback side, to a private family fund. We want to serve them all alike, and we want to make sure we're giving them the best service. So we definitely prioritize on marketing, because a lot of it is retail, and retail is all about the story.
Sure.
Even sale-leasebacks, when you're talking about a growing company wanting to do a sale-leaseback, you have to understand who that company is, what they're selling, how they're viable in today's ever-changing market. So we go beyond the numbers to tell the story, and we do a lot of that through our marketing.
Yeah.
And then as a boutique firm, we have a phenomenal legal team, we have a phenomenal marketing team, a phenomenal PR team. So it's, utilizing your resources and asking for help when you need it. So we're not experts in everything. We're experts in brokerage. So we got to surround ourselves by good people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if anybody's looking for top tier marketing job, it sounds like CrownPoint's the place to be. That's awesome. So, you just started earlier this year. How are you thinking about scaling up that client service mindset? and I'm going a little rogue here. I know we didn't talk about this beforehand,
No,
but
it's fine.
I'm just curious because, you want to provide that level of very strongly detailed, focused service to each person. How do you think about bringing that at scale? And maybe you don't at a boutique firm. Like maybe you're like, we only want to work with these specific clients. I'm curious how you think about like maintaining that just awesome elite tier level as you grow the company.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
You know, we can grow in various ways.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is with the client. What are their new developments? What are their new acquisition strategies? What is their new disposition strategy? But also who are new clients? And I think a lot of that actually comes down to marketing and PR. Because, for example, we have a ton of Tractor Supplies right now listed. We've closed probably more Tractor Supplies than anybody else in the country.
That's a fun niche.
Yeah, I love Tractor Supplies. They're such a good tenant. Side cool note about tractors that I learned is the building itself is about 21 to 25,000 square feet. So it's price per square foot, the rent on that. Yeah. And it's already, market rent.
Yeah.
But really the amount that tractor occupies is closer to 50,000 square feet because you have all your tractor displays, your feed stations, you have your garden display. So when you take really a look at the rent divided by the 50,000 square feet, it's, right at market, right below market. It's pretty incredible.
Wow.
Not to mention the build to do it is very expensive. So once they're in a location they love,
you're set.
Yeah.
They will be there. Yeah.
They're a really cool client for, a 1031 investor to want to get into. Yeah. So it's a great tenant to look at. But why I bring that up is, if people start seeing you do those kind of deals, when they start hunting for those, they're going to come to you. And then you can put them into your developer that you're working with's product. Other developers may come to you and say, hey, can you work with me on this? So the more you're out there, the more of a market expert and the more welcoming you are to new clients, both on the buy side and the list side. So I think it's organic growth and, it's also markets. Like right now, we are doing a ton of work in Florida. And just, picking up more inventory there, meeting new developers, meeting new investors who have to sell for a variety of reasons. That's how you grow. And that's how your clients know you're the market expert is because of your track record. So I hope I answered that question.
No,
right.
Totally. Yeah, it's all about the networking effect, but you've proven yourself several times over in the past.
Yes.
So being able to just keep proving that out. And that is truly like where marketing comes into play. You want to market the listings if you're selling them, but you got to market your company too.
And that's the deal story is what helps other investors is they want to know how has this been done and how can you execute for them.
I didn't actually think about that till you said it, but the story of a deal as a guide for other investors as opposed to like a case study of like, here's what I've done. It's both. Yeah. But that's a very interesting perspective. It's just like, this is more added educational value for you.
Totally.
Yeah, now you got me thinking about things in an interesting way. So, coming into a new company after working in brokerage for a decade, do you see things clients that are looking for that are maybe a little bit different than what they wanted from a brokerage working with them in the past? Technology has evolved a lot. I think, like your firm, there actually are a lot more like niche brokerages coming up that are like just doing their one thing really well. Do you think, for the buyers and professionals you serve, are they looking for anything different in today's market than they were maybe pre-COVID or further back than that?
Yeah, so I love that you brought this up because I just wrote an article for Shopping Center Business that is published in the May 2025 edition talking about this in depth. So anyone feel free to read it.
It's a good article. We'll link it in the comment or the show notes.
But it goes into that. I think, there's a lot of really impactful things that have happened, whether it was technology, whether it was the shutdowns back in, the 2020s. Wow, that's crazy to think about, we're in 2025. Oh, my God. And people really started to think back to the real fundamentals of real estate and location. What kind of environment am I investing in? Is it business friendly? Is it tax friendly? What are the socioeconomic things happening to affect this piece of real estate? And also, what is the rent? Below market rents and market rents are more important now than ever. And the viability of the tenant. Can they withstand economic shifts? Can they pay their rent? Okay, well, what, God forbid this tenant leaves, can I replace it? Similar to the Bojangles story.
Yeah.
That only sold because my clients were smart enough when they first bought it to make sure they got prime real estate.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the tenant. It wasn't just about the lease. It was about the dirt, which it's real estate, that's
Yeah.
what you're selling.
Yeah.
So I think our clients are super focused on that and cognizant of what is the fundamental deal I am buying. And as a broker, and especially the boutique firm, that allows us to really laser focus in on that for our clients and make sure we're providing them that product, whether it's off market, whether it's a listing, or whether we're representing them on that acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah. It's twofold nice because on one hand, you're adding like more narrow of a boundary line in terms of like, here's the things that we're looking for and even going to engage with. We're not going to use our resources or our time to try anything else. But it's also like calling on you and your team to be a lot more creative with the problem solving. And I think something I've really noticed speaking with other brokers in today's market is that creativity is so important to be able to figure out all the different angles of a deal. And exactly like you said, like we're in some weird times right now where things are shifting, things aren't as certain future wise, and you need to be able to plan for all the contingencies. And that does require a lot of thinking about it creatively, a lot of the knowledge, which is where your underwriting experience comes in, I'm sure. And yeah, like the more willing to think of creative ways to solve the problem, and like you said, bring those two parties to the middle to find something they both want, the better work you can do. So love to hear that.
Of course. I actually have a good deal story about that.
Let's hear it.
So we were about the third or fourth broker in on a deal, and we had good fundamentals, but it wasn't selling. So we took another look at the deal. We realized, okay, maybe it looks a little bit like a tertiary market. It was a Tractor Supply, but let's focus in on how many farms, how many ranches are in the area, what part of their GDP is directly related to agriculture. We revamped our whole marketing package, and we focused on that. We made sure we unturned absolutely every stone for a buyer. And then the buyer ended up being a local ranch owner in a 1031 exchange.
Kidding.
So it was perfect. We got the deal sold at a really great cap rate for my client. They were thrilled. And the buyer was just quintessential, the perfect buyer for this.
It just happened to be there.
Yeah, so
by.
It's about the marketing. It's about the story, You can't just post something anymore on a platform like Crexi. Crexi is a gateway for conversation. You post it, the leads are phenomenal. I love using your platform, but it's just the start of it. As a broker, you got to tell the story afterwards. But we couldn't do that without you guys, So
appreciate the
great.
love. Thank you. So before we get into more of like what you're seeing in the market today, I'd love to hear your vision for what you want CrownPoint's legacy to be next 5 years, next 10 years. In terms of, the clients you work with, in terms of your guys' place in the industry, what is the goal for you and your partners?
Yeah, I think we kind of already talked about it a little bit. It's really going to be to continue to partner with our clients. If we do a deal with you today, we want to be doing deals with you 10 years down the road. We want to serve everyone in the best possible light. We want them to be happy with the offers that we deliver, with their advice on what buyer to choose. If it's an acquisition, we help them get a property they're satisfied with, and just keep those relationships and just keep growing our market presence and, doing what we love to do.
Love it. I love it. The passion drives everything.
Yes.
So diving a little more, specifically on the net lease side, retail in general, it's an interesting market today. We're recording this beginning of May. I think this will air probably a little after ICSC. So a lot of updates will, I'm sure, come to light after those conversations. But just in terms of what you're seeing in the market right now, retail, I think, has proven itself very resilient coming out of COVID in a lot of different ways. And so in the last year or so, it was really a darling. Like a lot of people were coming in. There's tons of demand. Like vacancies were really low. 2025 is a new year. We have other stuff going on. What is your read on the market right now?
So I'm always an optimist because I believe no matter which way you look at the market, there's always opportunity. And as a broker, it's about finding the people doing the deals and making sure you're working with them and making sure that you can create that market. So I think there's two outlooks right now.
Sure.
There is transitionary, where we're kind of normalizing, we're stabilizing, we're going to have a happy outlook, and it's just, we're kind of resetting right now. Then the other look is recession. But there's still opportunity in a recession because that means rates probably will go down, cap rates will continue to go down, real estate values go up. So whether you think things will normalize or we're in for a little darker times, there's still investors with capital ready to place it. And then it goes back to kind of the point we just talked about is a flight to quality and to going to those real estate fundamentals. So no matter what, it'll prevail. This tenant has a really great outlook. They're going to still be in the market 10, 15 years. Okay, yeah, maybe we're a little worried about gas stations because of electric cars. Okay, but it's on the corner of Main and Palm Beach, Florida.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
that real
turn it into
estate's
an electric station.
yeah, it's going to be valuable. Who
Yeah.
knows who's going to want to go there and what they're going to pay.
Yeah.
So I think it's really kind of a combination of, keeping your foot on the gas, making sure that you are seeing the opportunity and, just following trends and just getting a lot of deal experience.
Yeah. Are you seeing, we've had the higher for longer interest rates conversation going for a while now. Maybe or maybe not. They might be coming down just depending on metrics that are coming out in the next couple of weeks or so. I'm curious, do you think people are just pricing that in now? Like they're willing to deploy the capital? Do you see deal volume increasing, deal velocity increasing, decreasing? How are people who have the cash to spend behaving in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you some live stats about what we've done in Q1.
Let's hear it.
So we have $70 million that we've closed.
Great.
So
Yeah.
deals are happening.
Yeah.
We have $160 million under contract or under LOI, and we have about $140 million listed.
Fantastic.
So, and there's three of us.
Yeah.
So, deals are happening. And I do think there is more of a merger of where buyer expectations are and seller expectations. And if someone truly needs to sell, they're meeting the market. And, we go on Crexi all the time. We will talk about how we use you guys for comps on market. But you do see those deals sitting on the market for 300 plus days. Those deals are stale inventory, and they're the deals that were not priced right. And that also can indicate not a motivated seller. True. There's nothing wrong with it. But the seller just needs to meet the market. And it's nice because we own our own company. We can pick and choose who we want to work with, what we want to work on. And we definitely want to work with transactional, realistic clients. And luckily all of ours are.
People who are willing to move.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you mentioned sale-leasebacks. I'd like to dive a little bit more into what you are seeing there. So is it a mix of maybe some of these operators are like, I'd rather have the cash flow or not own the building, maybe get that cash infusion, just pay rent with it, do some other stuff? Is it more like a strategic move? What are you seeing in the reasonings behind those kinds of transactions in today's market?
Absolutely. So I think you hit the nail on the head of identifying both sectors of the sale-leaseback
Awesome.
world. So the answer is yes to both.
Yeah.
So the first answer is operators who are looking to expand and they don't want to take out a loan on the property. A loan on the property, you're going to be constricted with LTV, 60%, 70%. You're not going to be able to fully capitalize on what your total building's worth. If they do a sale-leaseback, they can take out 100% of that value of the real estate, which is very lucrative to them to continue to expand. Not to mention there's tax benefits. But there is another sector of the sale-leaseback world, and these are M&A firms who are thriving off the sale-leaseback concept, and that's what they would choose to do, whether interest rates are 2%, whether they were 10%. That is how they expand. That is their business model. And so you see them always having a need for sale-leasebacks because that's kind of written into what they do.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense. And then I'm curious, these different operators, not just necessarily in sale-leasebacks, but different operators that you work with, are you seeing buyers maybe be more or less interested in different types of businesses based on today? You mentioned like gas stations, some concern because there'll be electric cars, but the real estate goes back to that. what are you seeing in terms of interest from the demand side? Doing well and maybe not as well, and you see like strategizing to try and pivot?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone's going to be emotionally scarred after the whole COVID pandemic for one thing or the other.
Sure.
So I think there's always going to be a push for essential retailers. And that's a part of the article that I wrote about that I heavily focused on is the prevalence of having a business that is viable, that people need. It's not a luxury good. They have to go to it. So those retailers are going to continue to prevail. Quick service restaurants with drive-thrus. Everyone loves a drive-thru. It helps keep sales up. Their Chipotle, I believe, with their Chipotlane, they state that they get 20% more. I know. Is it too close to lunch to talk about Chipotle?
No, you said Chipotlane.
Oh, yeah, Chipotlane.
I've not heard of that.
Oh, my God, you haven't?
That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. So that's their drive-thru. Isn't it cute?
That's so cute.
They're so good with marketing. They have such a cult
I'm
following.
obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chipotlane.
Chipotlanes. So Chipotlanes, they increase store sales, they say, by about 20%.
Yeah.
So drive-thrus are paramount. Also, just the logistics of developing a deal. If you have a drive-thru already zoned, you're golden. It's going to be there. So even when, let's say, a quick service restaurant could go dark, let's say that concept no longer is in vogue, let's say Chipotle's cult following goes away, well, if they have a drive-thru, you're going to get another QSR in there. And we actually had a deal, KFC out in Philadelphia. They only had 2 years left on the lease. They were paying $36,000 in rent, which is extremely below market.
Yeah.
And very easily, as soon as we took that to market, we got over a dozen offers because we had so many other developers with a tenant in tow.
Yeah.
About
I need to go.
and put a deal in. And then that's a way less construction costs. Construction costs are still high to just fit it out for, a competing concept.
Yeah.
So that is huge. And just, good real estate, once again, the fundamentals.
It always comes back to the dirt. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
So how are you thinking about with your 1031 buyers? How are you thinking about guiding where they're going to park their capital in today's world where cap rates are just a little bit higher, like timelines are tight, particularly for 1031 folks? How do you think about steering where they should go when they've sold and they're ready to redirect that capital?
Yeah, I think for every client, it's going to be a little bit different about what their goals are. Where are they in their stage of their investment cycle? What do they want? What's most important? I have some buyers who just only want to stay in income tax-free states. I have some buyers who just want ground leases with low rents. So it really, really is hard to say because everybody's different. But what I can say is telling their story. Just as when I represent a seller, I want to know everything about the buyer because just because an offer is higher priced or just because an offer might have a really tight DD doesn't mean it's the best buyer. Every asset has, that perfect marriage of a buyer and seller, and you need to find that. And that's what I advise my clients when I list a property for them is, hey, this is a good buyer. They have a high probability because of X, Y, Z. So when I represent a buyer, I have to tell their story about why they are going to be a good buyer and why they should get chosen for the listing.
Yeah, I've been reminded of this a few times in the last couple of weeks that you as the buyer are selling yourself as much as the seller is selling their listing.
Totally.
It's a choice. So yeah, it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. You mentioned comps earlier and pricing being a lot of question marks, especially as the market's kind of shifting week to week, month to month. So how do you think about building out your BOVs for clients, and where do comps come into play? Where do you kind of have to base things on your intuition and maybe other numbers? How do you think about that in today's market in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a variety of things. So one is deal stories are everything. We've closed a half dozen Chipotles in the last 6 months, going back to Chipotle, and just knowing where they're trading, how the investors are, feeling about them in the market. Same with a Tractor Supply. So that experience is huge. Then looking at what has closed. But the market is ever shifting, especially with interest rates. So one of the things we do is we like to look at our on-market competition. Because if an investor is privy to other listings out there, that are the same tenant, that have the same deal fundamentals, that could hurt your listing. So you want to make sure it's being positioned as the most attractive on the market, whether it's price, whether it's the deal fundamentals, whether it's stuff that is happening around in the economy, the local economy, new developments. Knowing all of that will help you best position the asset. So a combination of everything. Deal experience, on-market listings are huge, and then also what has closed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back again to your sharing about, leaving no stone unturned for the buyer, like going out of your way to find everything about the story of this property to really sell them on the idea of why they should be spending their attention and their capital there.
Yeah.
So totally makes sense.
And it's worked on a bunch of listings that we did, especially some second, third generation listings where a deal could be a part of a huge market. And we look at the old OM and no one even called that out.
Yeah.
So our new marketing is going to be focused on, okay, this is in this MSA. This is what's happening right now. And being that market expert really helps your client get that deal done.
Yeah. How do you develop that expertise? Do you just read a lot of journals? I mean, you said you looked at closed deals and comps. Do you have any technology that you use to aggregate the data? Is it like a private spreadsheet you guys share back and forth? I'm curious, how do you build up that specific numbers expertise on behalf of your clients?
Yeah, a lot of it is data. So we use Crexi, for example, for on-market and off-market comps. We find that is one of the most relevant sources nowadays to go to, because all us brokers are using you guys, because you do have one of the most efficient, MLSs, if you will, of commercial real estate. So it's really helpful. Also, too, technology, just with all publications being online, that's huge. A local market. We have a Shaw's right now listed. We have multiple offers on it. Great real estate. It's short-term lease, so there's hurdles to overcome. But just knowing what's happening in that local market, just by Googling to understand what's happening. The mall's being redeveloped, turning into hundreds of multifamily units and a Costco.
Wow.
The other Shaw's in the neighborhood is shutting down, going to drive traffic to ours.
Wow.
We're the first pad site before you hit Home Depot and Target and that new mixed-use development.
Yeah.
So telling that story and being attuned with what's happening in that local market. Yeah. And then lastly, just having good relationships with other brokers. So when I first started, there was this really sense of competition amongst everyone. Oh, my firm's better than your firm, all that. But nowadays, especially with the rise of the boutique firm, we're all in it together. We're all working together. Brokers call me all the time asking, hey, do you co-op? 1,000% do I co-op, because I want to do a deal with you. I want to make an alliance in the industry and work together, because once again, that best serves your clients, working with everybody. But by working with other people, they have their own deal stories and they share information with you, and then that further helps. So just, networking also is a huge help when pricing out deals.
Absolutely. This is a nerdy reference, but I can't help think of The Office, where Dwight's like, or is it Dwight? I can't remember who it is. But he's like, do you want to form an alliance with me? This is boutique brokerages.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it. And then, finally wrapping up this topic, what advice do you have for maybe sellers or developers trying to bring product to market or move their product around in the market with this tighter debt and equity environment? What advice would you give those parties?
Yeah, I mean, we did go through a little bit of a hard time when that initial interest rate spiked. And a lot of developers, their pro formas were to the lowest interest rate. So I do always caution, if my advice is being asked, to just, be a little conservative in your spreads, because you're also riding in that risk. So just being more aware of the risk. But then also, too, just picking those great sites. There's numerous occasions where I might have two analogous listings, one in Florida and one somewhere else. And that Florida deal will get more attention than, let's say, a less tax-friendly environment or, maybe a less desirable area. And that's really another thing is, pick sites that are going to thrive in the long term, whether it's today or whether you own that asset for 50 years.
Yep. Location.
Yeah, it seems like a theme, right?
It never goes away. So I want to be mindful of your time. And you got a long drive ahead of you after this.
Yes, going to see the team members down in Laguna. It will be fun.
Yeah, it's just well, I know a good podcast you can listen to on the drive down.
Oh, yes.
But to wrap us up, I wanted to shoot a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. So if you were handed $50 million today and you had to spend it in real estate today, where would you park that capital and why?
Okay. So I think if you have $50 million, it's a lot different than investing $1 million. $1 million, you're going to be focused on yield. You're going to be focused on a lot of different things. $50 million, it's all about wealth preservation. So with wealth preservation, you're going to be so shocked by my answer. I'm going to find real estate that I truly believe in the dirt. I'm going to find rents that are below market. So I know if something happens to that tenant, I'm excited. I'm ready to go release that space and get another tenant in. And I know it's going to be achievable. So I think building a portfolio around that philosophy is going to be huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Things you really believe in. I love that. And then what is the craziest way that you have found a new client or listing?
Okay, so I'm just going to be really boring with this one. Every time I get a referral, it still is, okay, I did my job. This is good. So there was one deal I was selling for one of my clients. It was a tertiary market QSR. I repped the seller. A few months after, the buyer came to me and just said, hey, I really liked how you conducted business. Can you work with me to build out my net lease portfolio? And she had a broker on the deal too, but she still liked how we handled the transaction and came back. So I kind of review that as like a little bit of a referral. And, that always, surprises me. And I'm like, okay. This is nice.
Feels good.
So
you're seeing the fruits of the work ethic and reputation you built for yourself.
Absolutely.
I love inbound business. It feels great.
Yep.
And then what is the most common misconception about either your job or commercial real estate at large?
Sure. So the most common misconception is it's not about suits and Rolexes. You can still wear leopard print and Valentino and get the job done.
Amen. It's a great dress. I'm still obsessed with it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And there's more and more. I was just at Beth Azor's Women Investor Summit in Miami 2 months ago. And just the amount of powerful deal making, networking happening in that room, it's all women.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll have to go next year. You'll have to send me the invite.
Please do. Yes, it's a great event. And there's others like it that are coming up. Like Crew does so much good stuff. Globe Street Women of Influence does so much good stuff. So it's really, I love this industry because there's so much opportunity that you can build for yourself in it.
Right.
If you do good work and you stand by your reputation and just care about what you do, which you obviously do.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we're so happy we could have had you on.
It was
today.
so nice being with you today. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for everything you do with your platform. It really is pivotal and we appreciate that.
Oh,
so, thank you.
Makes you feel good. So where can people find you? Where can people find CrownPoint if they want to get in touch and see what you're up to?
Yeah, so our website is pretty comprehensive. It has our track record. It has exactly what we do. It's crownpoint.co, and it's spelled CROWNPOINT. Nothing funny with E's or anything like that. My email is shannon@crownpoint.co. And then on Instagram, it's @netleasequeen. And you can find me there with, fun deal stories, where we're at, events we're attending, everything like that. So
I love it.
Yeah, I hope we can all stay connected.
Yes, please go give her a follow. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do not miss the next one. Visit crexi.com/podcast and sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. You can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app or check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each and every episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.